Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government whether the Scottish Ministers will call in Appeal PPA 002-2021 on the Flamingo Land Lomond Banks resort development.
Minister Ivan McKee.
Thank you. I'm aware that our reporter has issued a notice of intention to allow the appeal in this case and grant planning permission in principle, subject to 49 different planning conditions and a legal agreement being reached and put in place. As the appeal remains live, members will understand it would not be appropriate for me to comment on the specifics of this proposal. However, I do recognise that many people have a keen interest in the reporter's intended decision on this planning appeal. Given the very technical planning issues raised in this case and the high level of public interest, I consider it is appropriate that objective planning judgment is applied in this case, and for that reason I do not intend to recall this appeal.
Ross Greer.
I'm incredibly disappointed by the Minister's response, as you would expect, Presiding Officer, and particularly this implication that it wouldn't be appropriate for Ministers to get involved. To be absolutely clear, Schedule 4, Paragraph 3 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1997 specifically gives Ministers that power, not officials, Ministers. In 2008, this Scottish Government intervened to overturn Aberdeenshire Council's rejection of Donald Trump's Many golf course. That was Ministers, not officials, overturning local democracy to help an American millionaire trash a sensitive natural environment. In this case, the government's own environment watchdog, SEPA, has said the application clearly breaches flood protection rules and does not meet the exceptions set out in the National Planning Framework. That's not to mention the 250 extra cars an hour it would bring at peak times on already congested roads like the A82. Does the Minister accept that the law clearly gives him the power to intervene, and will he do so and reject this mega resort on the basis of the overwhelming expert evidence of the damage it would do to a world-famous location?
Minister.
Well, what I would say is that the expert in this case is the reporter, who is tasked with going through the planning regulations as they apply in this case, looking at the evidence in depth. They've issued their notice of intention on this case, which runs to 80 pages, and as I say, it contains those 49 conditions that need to be in place before the approval can be taken forward. So that is the reality of the situation. The planning regulations have been considered in this case. The reporter has reached their expert opinion based on the evidence, and as I say, subject to those planning conditions and subject to the legal agreement being put in place. And on that basis, as indicated, we've got no intention to recall this appeal.
Ross Greer.
Flamingo Land's mega resort proposal was opposed by a record 155,000 people. Objectors included the National Trust for Scotland, the Woodland Trust, Ramblers and our national environment watchdog, SEPA. The National Park's own experts recommended refusal, and their board unanimously rejected it on the basis of flood risk, loss of nature and biodiversity and a conflict with the aims of the National Park as set out in law. This has all now been overturned by an official. Does the Minister understand why it looks like the profits of a theme park operator have been put ahead of Scotland's national interest and our world-famous natural environment?
Minister.
Well, as I said earlier, the reporter has gone through the evidence. They've looked at it through the light of the planning regulations. They've looked at all the evidence that Ross Greer has mentioned. They've put together their report on the appeal. They have, and I would encourage Ross Greer and others to go and look at them, put in place 49 planning conditions that need to be satisfied that address all of the issues that Ross Greer has raised before this proposal is taken forward, and the requirement for a legally binding agreement to be put in place. So, as I said before, all of those issues that Ross Greer has raised have been considered in that report. You should go and read it. You should go and look at those 49 planning conditions and then reflect on the reality of the decision that the reporter has reached, which I say is based an impartial expert view based on the evidence before them.
I call Jackie Bailey.
Presiding Officer, I've had the benefit of reading the report, but can I say to the Minister, the A82 has insufficient capacity to carry the volume of existing traffic, never mind adding more to it. The slightest bit of sunshine and the A82 becomes a car park as people across Scotland flock to Loch Lomond. So Flamingo Land will make the position worse. The Minister will know the reporter's decision does fly in the face of expert evidence, the unanimous decision of the National Park, the view of SEPA, and indeed the overwhelming majority of local people. I am bemused that the reporter's opinion outweighs all these ministerial appointees and all these expert agencies, and indeed the view of my local community. Can I therefore ask him to take the time to visit the site, to talk to local people, and on the back of that, review all of the decision making and call the planning application in?
Minister.
I'll again say to Jackie Baillie that all of the issues that she raised have been addressed in the reporter's considerations, and as I said, 49 planning conditions have been put in place that need to be satisfied, addressing all of those points that she's raised regarding they have to be satisfied before the application is taken forward. And as I said earlier, with the appeal remaining live, members would very much understand it would not be appropriate for me to comment on any of the specifics, other than to say that those issues have been addressed by the reporter.
Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, the Flamingo Land proposal in my area of Western Bartonshire received over 150,000 objections. I have received correspondence from many constituents and organisations who are outraged by this decision. Including yesterday, I was contacted by representatives from the Loch Lomond Rescue Boat who said, "This is not a democracy, it is a disposition stamping on well-based decision of the Constitutional Planning Authority and on the wishes of local population." Can I ask the Minister, why is the Scottish Government's reporter ignoring the views of local population who fought so hard against this development?
Minister.
Well, I'll just reiterate, I think Pam Goss will find, if she goes and reads through that report the reporter has put online, that it very much addresses the objections that have been raised both by members of the public, organisations and other interested parties, and that is why there are 49 conditions in place that have to be satisfied before this proposal can be taken forward, and also a legal agreement has to be put in place that satisfies all of those conditions, precisely to address the specific concerns that she and other members have raised this afternoon.
Slater.
I would reiterate the calls from my colleagues that the Scottish Government should call in this planning permission. Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park has the aim of making the park a thriving place that is nature positive and carbon negative by 2045. This is in line with the priorities set out in our National Planning Framework, NPF 4. The Flamingo Land theme park is a totally inappropriate development that will clear considerable woodland to build 104 lodges, 2 hotels, a water park, a monorail and 372 parking spaces. The carbon footprint and damage to ecosystems of this project are enormous, and the park is right to reject them. Scotland cannot meet our climate and biodiversity goals if our national parks can't lead the way. If the Scottish Government has any intentions of meeting its biodiversity and net zero targets, how can it not support its own national park in opposing this development?
Minister.
Well, again, I would say that the report has considered all of the issues that Lorna Slater has raised, that were raised as objections to the development. That is why the requirement for that legal agreement is in place, and that is why those 49 planning conditions are in place that have to be satisfied precisely to address the issues that she has raised. And as I say, I don't want to go into the details of the case itself. It's not appropriate for me to do that, but you'll be able to reflect on the fact that the objections that the National Park itself put in place, the specific objections they put in place, have been addressed by the work that the reporter has undertook.
And Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I thank my environmentally conscious constituents in the North East who have contacted me concerned that we may be about to see yet another of our national natural assets sold off and trashed by the highest bidder. One constituent writes, "It's not that long ago that the Scottish Government made the grave mistake of overturning a local planning committee decision not to allow Donald Trump to destroy the dunes at Menny, giving one of the nastiest people on the planet a foothold in our fair country." Presiding Officer, in February 2024, before, the Department for Business and Trade identified Flamingo Land Limited as having failed to pay its workers the national minimum wage. So can I ask the Minister how giving permission to this resort aligns with the Scottish Government's intention to end minimum wage avoidance under its Fair Work commitments?
Minister.
Again, I would ask the member to go and look at the reporter's report, which has been published, and the 49 planning conditions and the requirements on the legal agreement and the Lomond Promise that goes along with that, which I think she'll find addresses the very points that she's just raised.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions. The next item of business is a statement by Angus Robertson,